Hi, good morning. So we will start our C session now. Fine. So now I will share my screen so that we'll start our session. Fine. So before starting the technical part, let us get a brief theoretical introduction on C programming. So C programming is one of the fundamentals programming language of a computer. So if you want to learn any higher languages like Java, .NET, Python, PHP, so whatever it is, your C programming language is the one which forms the basics, like I like alphabets to your English or English language. So it is very important. And C language is even today it is alive because C language can be directly used. Sorry, it is directly used by many other languages to create their inbuilt functions. For example, if you take PHP or Python, they have certain inbuilt functions which are in turn written on C language. So that is why C language is still alive and still it is getting updated. And there is a small application called as Turbo C. So in education part, we'll be using Turbo C to learn C language. So whenever you hear a word called Turbo C, Turbo C is not actually not the C language. Okay. Turbo C is nothing but a small editor which can compile and execute C language. Okay. So it is not a C language, it is just a compiler and a editor, like your MS Word. So MS Word is an application which enables you to write some document. In the same way, Turbo C is also editor which enables you to write C programming language. And C programming language is called as a high level language. The reason behind why it is called high level language is that basically your computer is nothing but a electronic device. So electronic device always work on two different inputs. One is 0 and another one is 1. You can, in other words, you can call it as on or off. So these are the two values any electronic device can identify. Since we cannot write code on zeros and ones, what we did, we created a small language called assembly language. So assembly language is consists of two parts. One is instruction and data. So it is a very limited language. So in assembly language, you use a translator called assembler. What happens there is that whenever you write a code in assembly language, you will first give it to the assembler. Then assembler will convert that language into zeros and ones called as machine language. Then that machine language will be given to your device. This is the flow. Then assembly language is very limited and it is also somewhat tough. So what they did is they went for a high level language. High level language is nothing but a computer programming language which is more or less similar to your English language, so that anyone can easily write their code and it had more features than assembly language. Now, whenever you write a assembly code, you use a translator called assembler. Same way, whenever you write a code in high level language, we use translator there. Here we use two types of translator. The first type is called as compiler and second one is called interpreter. C language uses a compiler, a translator called compiler. What it does is, whenever you write a C language program, you need to first submit to your compiler. Then your compiler checks whether there is a proper syntax or not, whether all your program variables are declared properly, all it will be checking everything. Once everything is fine, then it will convert your C language into assembly language. Then that will be passed to your assembler. Then assembler will convert to machine language. Then that machine language code will be passed to your device. This is how the compiler flows. And there is another translator called interpreter. Both are literally doing the same work, but there is a small modification in their working system. Whenever you use compiler, what compiler does is that if you have a C program, a single file which consists of 100 lines. Consider it has 100 lines. What a compiler does is that it reads all 100 lines, checks for error, and if there is any error in any one particular line, it will not execute the program. It will just throw saying that there is a error in so and so line. This is what compile. It works on whole. Whenever there is no issue on all 100 lines, only then it will be converted to assembly language and passed to your assembler. But in case of interpreter, it is something different. What it does is that it takes the first line, checks the error, converts to assembly and pass to assembly for execution. So it goes line by line. So interpreter is a translator which translates line by line. Compiler is also another translator which translates entire program. That is the difference between compiler and interpreter. That is the main difference between compiler and interpreter. But both are translators, and your C programming language will be using compiler. And that compiler is called as C compiler. There are many compilers, Java compiler and C compiler. C compiler is used for C, Java compiler is used for Java. That is the difference. Now let us see a basic program structure in C language. So whatever thing you are seeing on your screen is called as Turbo C. So the Turbo C screen might look a little bit small in your Teams. So if you're facing that any small, please try to zoom that particular area alone. Fine. So it has basic operations like your notepad. So first I am opening a new file. So I'll be deleting this file because this is a file we have used for our previous session. So I'll just remove this file. Fine. So I have created a new file. So let us first see what is a basic C programming. So first I will write a basic C program and then I will give a go through of it. So this is a basic C program structure. So whenever you start a C program, you will always see a section called as include. This will be the starting line of any C program. So first let us discuss what is this include line does and why it is so important. Every C program has this line. See, C program, it is not just a simple application. It has some predefined functionalities in it. For example, if you want to print something on your screen, your monitor, or if you want to print something to your file, all those operations are already written in C language itself. So all the codings related to printing your statements on your screen or getting inputs or outputs, everything related to input output has been already written in your C programming language. And that is being stored in a file which is called as header files. Header files are nothing but functionalities of C programming language, the inbuilt functionalities of C programming language. So now in this program, I am going to print a statement called welcome to MJIT. So to print this statement, I need not to write multiple lines of code because all the codes are already written in my stdio.header file. So that stdio means standard input output header file. This header file contains all instructions related to input output operations. So I am going to include that header file and going to call a function called printf. So this printf function will be defined in your stdio.h. That is why we need to include all the header files before using that particular function. So whenever you want to use printf, you need to use stdio.h because printf functionality codings is being written only on that header file. Without that header file, your printf will not work. That is the reason. So there are not only one header file, there are many header files, math.h, conio.h. There are multiple header files which we'll be seeing one by one in our continuous classes. Today we are be dealing only with stdio.h. So now I have included that particular header file. Then you could see another line which is always present in C programming, that is called as void main. So this is called a function. One C program can have any number of functions. There is no limitation. There can be any number of functions. Now, why we always have one function named as main? You could see in any C programming language that main function is always there. The reason is that whenever your C program starts to execute, we need to say to your C compiler where to start the execution. You might have 100 lines, 200 lines, but we need to first say to your C program where to start. If you're having some 5 functions in your C program, you need to say which is the function which we need to start first. So as an indicator, we always use a function called main. Main is a keyword from where your compiler starts the execution. So that is the importance of main. That is why we always have a function called main. Now getting to our structure. So whenever you start a function, there must be a open and closed curly brackets. All your codings related to this particular main function must be present within this curly brackets, a open and a close. That is mandatory. Then between this particular curly brackets, you can use your statements. Now here I have used a very simple statement called as printf. Printf means it is nothing but print function which is present in stdio. I am passing some data to print. Whenever you are passing any sentence to be print, it must be given within a double quotes. You could see here it is been given within a double quotes. I have written welcome to MJIT within double quotes. So what happens? This will be given as an input to the stdio.h. Then stdio.h will take care of printing it. So this is the basic C program structure. Your header files, your void main class, then curly brackets. Within your curly brackets, you are going to give your statement. So this is a basic structure. Now let us see how to properly execute a C program in Turbo C. So you are having two different steps to do this. First, before executing your program, you need to compile your program. During compilation, if you have any errors in your C program, you might get the alert saying that you have error in so and so line. So you need to correct those errors before executing it. So now let us compile your program. So now how to compile? In your menu bar, you have an option called compile. There you have another option called compile. So once you press it, it will check your program and it will tell whether you have any errors or warnings. As of now, we have not given any error, so it is showing us 0. Now let us create a error so that let us experience that also. I am not giving this semicolon. Consider I am not giving this semicolon. Any statement in C program must end with a semicolon, but here I am not giving a semicolon. And now let us see what type of error we are getting. See, now we got 2 errors. So now let us see how the error is being shown. So in the bottom, you have a message console. There we are having an error. It is saying statement missing semicolon. So this is how you will be able to identify that we are missing a semicolon. So now let us give a semicolon and then compile it again. So now we have solved our error. So now we have 0 error. So now let us run the program. So to run the program before compile, you have another option called run. So we are going to use this particular option to run the program. So now the program has actually executed. The print statement was actually printed, but you will not be able to see because there is a window called console window. The console window is the one where we will be seeing our outputs, but the console window will not wait for us to see it. It will just print and it will just go black. That is the operation of a console window. It just prints the output and then it just hides. So now I need to stop the window from hiding. So for that we have a workaround called as getch. So I will first execute the program and I will tell you what is a getch. To use getch, we need a header called conio. That is called console input output. So I will first run the program and then I will tell you what it is happening. So I'm running the program. So now you might see two welcome to MJIT. That is welcome to MJIT is being printed twice. The reason is that the first print came from our first execution, which we were not able to see. And second came from our current execution, which we are able to see. So console holds the output of previous program also. So console is a place where all your outputs are getting printed in C language. So now you might have a doubt. Last time it was not showing, now it is showing. The reason is that because of that getch function. Getch means the expansion of getch is nothing but get character. Get character means your console will wait until there is a character pressed in your keyboard. So it waits for a user until it receives a input from the user via your keyboard. So if I press any key in my keyboard, it receives a input. On that time, your console window will get hide. So this is how it works. So getch is not actually used to stop the console window. It is a workaround actually. I am saying that wait until I press some key. So that your console window work waits until we press any key in your keyboard. And getch functionality is written in console input, that is short form called as conio.header. So without conio.header, your getch will not work. So this is how a basic C program works. So stdio is in charge for printf, conio is in charge for getch, and main function is the location where your compiler starts compiling and executing your program. So this is the basic functionality. Now let us go into little bit deeper. Now let us try to do some arithmetic operations in C programming language. So I will remove these statements. Let us go to our arithmetic operation. Fine. So whenever we do a arithmetic operation, we very well know that to do any arithmetic operation like addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, we need minimum two inputs. We need two values so that we can add it. So we are going to create two inputs. So let me create two inputs. Int A equal to 10, int B equal to 20. Fine. So now I will explain you what this int A and int B represents. In this line, let us see only int A first. Int A means I am going to have a value of 10. Any programming language cannot deal a data directly. Okay, 10 is called as a data. That is the data you are giving to your computer or your programming language. Your programming language, not only here, any programming language cannot deal data directly. It needs a holder. That holder is called as a variable. That is, here it is A. For example, if you are going to take a coffee or a tea, you cannot directly take coffee or a tea from your hand. So what you do, you use your holder called a cup. So in your cup, what you will do, you will pour your coffee or your tea. So coffee or tea is the data. Cup is your variable, which is holding the data. So using your cup, you will be taking your data. Same way, 10 is a data, A is a variable. So C programming language also will take your data in variable A, and using A, it will be accessing the data. That is why we call it as a variable and data relationship. And now there is a third word called int. So what is a int? So let us get back to our real-time example itself. Some people take coffee, some people take milk, some people take tea. So whatever they take, what they will do, they will pour it in a cup and they take that drink. So drink is a data. Cup is a variable, and what type of drink it is, whether it is coffee, milk, or tea, that is the data type. So int here is a data type. What type of data is stored in A? That is what we are showing here. So int means it is called as integer. So any variable which is stored as a integer, it must hold only whole values. That means 10, 9, 10, 11, 12 like that. It cannot hold a decimal value. That is what we call it as a integer. So if you want to use a decimal value, then we need to use something called as float. Float is nothing but it is also a numerical data type which can hold a decimal point value like 10.12, 10.3 like that. So that is the example for float. So now let us see what is a float. Float B equal to 23.45. This is called as float. So whenever you declare 10.10 in integer, that is not acceptable because you have told A is a integer. That means A is a whole value. So it cannot hold a decimal value point. So now let us compile and check what type of error we are getting. Fine, we have two warnings. Let us see. B is never used. A. This part I will explain you in the next session. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to add and check what it is going to happen. Int C equal to A plus B. Then I am going to print my C value. So this this percentage symbol D, we will see it after execution. So now I have declared two values, 10.10, 23.45. I'm adding them and putting it in C. Then I am printing my C value. So now let us see what is that we are going to get. So we have no syntax error now. So we are going to run the program. Fine, we got 33. But now you can see where is the decimal point went. You are not able to see the decimal point. We are getting 33. Now let us see logically what happens. So whenever we add these two numbers, you must get 33.55. But where is that 0.5? That is being omitted. The reason is that integers do not take care of values which are present right side to your decimal point. Any value that is given right side to your decimal point, that will be omitted by your A, because A and C are integer. They cannot hold decimal value. That is the reason. But if you convert everything into float, okay, fine. See. Now you are able to get your decimal points. You can see 33.55 we have got. Why is the reason is that now everything is float. Float means it can hold values right side to a decimal point also. So that is why your 55 is maintained. Now in your print statement, I have used a $F. Previously we have used $D. Now we have used $F. Now let us see why we are using this $F and $D. Now, as we know in printf, whatever value that is given within this within this double quote, that will be printed in your console. So now what happens is that your C compiler reads this statement, printf value $F. So this is a normal value. So it gets printed. Value just gets printed in your console. But whenever it reads $F, it does not print anything. It leaves that space thinking that there is a float value coming in the future in that location. And that float value is nothing but this C. This is the operation. So whenever you want to print any variable in your console, first you need to allot a space for it. So this percentage is the one which allots space for the variable. And next is here indicator what is going to come there. Whenever you use integer, we need to have d. Whenever you use float, you need to have f. Whenever you have character, you need to have c. So these are the three primitive types. So based on the data type, you need to indicate. So percentage allots a space and the indicator says what type of data is going to come there. So now let us make a little bit complex print statement. Adding a. So I'm going to get a float here and b float here. So now I am going to print A, B, and C. So now I have to give all three variables here. So that is how your print statement works. So your $F, it is going to allot a place for your variable to get printed, and your D, F, and C are indicators which are going to indicate what type of value is going to come in your C program. So that is how your console is being get ready there. So now let us write a full program and compile and check A, comma, B, comma, C. Now let us compile and check. Actually, you can directly run your program also, but it is always a good habit to compile your program before running. So now you might have a answer here. So 23 and 001 is fine. So this is how your print statement prints. But here you might have a little complexity in understanding the output because it is always having the previous outputs also. So now we need to clear the previous output. So how to clear the previous output is that you need to add a special function before writing any program. CLR SCR, that is nothing but clear screen, short form of clear screen. So this clear screen, what it does is that it clears your console. Whatever previous data printed in your console, that will be cleared, and then you will have only your new output. So now let us see that. See, now you are having. So this is how you will be getting your output. So hereafter, whenever you execute your program, you will be able to see only results related to that particular execution. Your old output will be cleared because we are using clear screen. That is what called as CLR SCR. So this is basically how to use data, variable, and data type. So now we have seen a small example of arithmetic operation, that is your addition operation and how to print it. Now let us do some operation related to your division and multiplication also. So let me clear this program. So I'm not going to clear my clear string because that we require always. So I'm going to leave it, and also get ch also I'm going to leave it. So anyhow we will be requiring that. So in between I'm going to write my code. So int a equal to 10, int b equal to 5, int c equal to a divided by b. So now I'm going to print my c value, percentage d, comma c. So we have no errors. So let us execute the program. So 10 divided by 5, we usually get value 2. Now let us do another step. Instead of using forward slash for do, let us use percentage, and let us see what is happening here. You are getting a value 0. So what is the difference between this and that is that in division, usually we have two different outputs. One is called quotient and another one is called as remainder. For example, whenever you divide number 7 by 3, your quotient will be 2, your remainder will be 1. So whenever you use forward slash for your division, you will be getting output as your 2. That is, your quotient will be given as a output. But whenever you use percentage symbol, that is called as modulus symbol, whenever you get modulus, you will get remainder 1 as a output. So now let us see that example also. So I will change my value to 7 and this one to 3. So no errors. Now let us print. We need to get a output as 1 because we are using modulo symbol. So we are getting a modulo symbol. So division alone is having two different symbols. One is forward slash, another one is a percentage. And other arithmetic operations are single as usual. Either you can use addition or subtraction or multiplication. These are all normal operations. Only your division is going to have two different functions. Fine. Now let us get into a little bit deeper topic called as if loop. So if loop means it is nothing but it is called as a conditional statement. Why we call it as a conditional statement is that now we are adding multiplying A and B and storing it C. We are printing it. It is called as a linear execution. It comes line by line. But conditional statement means a particular statement will be executed only when certain condition is met. So you need to first give a condition. So only if that condition is true, that statement will be printed. So now let us see a small example for your conditional statement. So the conditional statement is called as if loop technically. So now let us see what it is. So now I need to print which is greater, whether A or B is greater. As a human being, I can just look into their values and find which is greater. Obviously, A is greater. So I can directly print A is greater. Because as a human being, I'm able to see it. But whenever tomorrow value changes, like B becomes 30, I need to go and change your print statement. So I need to keep on changing my print statement. This is a tedious work. So what we are going to do, we are going to include a new concept called conditional statement or if statement. And now let us see what is the syntax of it. So as the name indicates, if loop starts with a keyword called as if. If A is greater than B. So once again, I'll open my curly bracket. And close my curly bracket. So I am saying only when A is greater than B, you need to print A is greater. So this print statement will be printed only when A is greater than B. On all other cases, this statement will not be printed. So that A is greater than B is called as the condition. So only when that condition is being satisfied, you will be able to print your statement. So not only print statement, whatever statement present inside this curly bracket loops of if, that will be executed only when the condition is being satisfied. So now let us execute and see what it is happening. Now the value of A is 7, B is 30. Now let us see what is happening. So first let us compile the program. Okay, zero errors. Then let us run the program. Now we have not any outputs. Why? Because the print statement is within the loop and the loop condition is A is greater than B. But obviously we know 7 is not greater than 30. That is why we are not able to get that print statement. Now let us increase the value of 7 from 7 to 70. Now obviously A is greater than B. Now you will be getting that print statement. So let us see that. Now we are able to get the print statement because now the condition is being satisfied. That is why we are able to get that print statement. Now let us get into a little tricky part. I am making both as 30. A is also 30, B is also 30. Now let us see what is happening. Let us compile the program. There is no error. So let us run the program. Okay, we got error. Sorry, that's our print. Okay, now also we are not getting any no output. The reason is that now A is not greater than B. A is actually equal to B. So that is why the condition was not satisfied. Okay, when only when A is above B, the condition will be satisfied. Equal to also will not be satisfied. So what we need to do, we need to add yes by another symbol called equal to, which is called as greater than or equal to. So this condition says that A can be greater than B or it can be equal to B. In both the conditions, print this statement. This is the meaning of this symbol, greater than equal to. It can be either greater than or it can also be equal to. This is what called greater than equal to. Now let us compile and let us run it. So now you are able to get it. So this is how greater than and greater than equal to works. Now let us see how equal to works. Now I need to only check whether they are equal or not. A is equal to B. So here I cannot use like this. Usually in mathematical notation, what we do whenever we are going to say LHS equal to RHS, we just give equal to. But in programming language, in any programming language, this is not allowed. The reason is that single equal to symbol is already used for another statement. This statement is called as assign statement. So whenever you want to assign a value to a variable, only on that time you need to use single equal to. So single equal to is called as assignment operator. Assignment operator means it is going to assign a value to a variable. So what it does is that a single equal to takes a value from the right hand side, that is your 30 right hand side, and places that value to a variable which is present on the left hand side. This is what a single equal to does. It just assigns from right hand to left hand. That is what a single equal to does. So that is why we are not able to use single equal to in your if loop. So that is why we are using double equal to, saying that here I am not assigning, I am checking. Checking means I am making a condition stating that A must be equal to B. So that is why we use double equal to in conditions. Not only in C programming language, in any programming language, this is the same case. So now let us see whether we are getting proper output or not. So I'm going to compile, no errors. So let us run the program. So now obviously A is equal to B. So this is how your conditional operators work. So you need to try to execute each combination of conditional operators. This is called less than or equal to. That means whenever A is less than or equal to B, only this statement will be printed. Sorry. So A is less than B. So this is how we use our operators. So now let us get into another more higher topic of if loop. So now let us create a scenario. If A is greater, I need to print A is greater. If B is greater, I need to print B is greater. So this is the condition. So what I need to do is that let us change the condition. If A is greater, let us print A is greater. Else B is greater. So this is the condition. So what is this else loop? Else loop is nothing but whenever if condition is not satisfied, this else part will be executed. Okay. So if you want a real-time example, let us consider you are going to a hotel. You are ordering something. Let us say you are ordering dosa. So while ordering dosa, you might also say that if dosa is not there, bring idli. So that idli is nothing but that is the else loop. If is nothing but your dosa. If dosa is present, bring me dosa. That is the if part. But if dosa is present, you are giving me another option. That is your else option. Bring idli. That is what we call as a else loop. Same thing we are doing here. If you are checking a condition A is greater than B. If A is greater than B, condition is okay, print A is greater. If condition is not okay, Obviously, we know B is greater, so we need to print that, and that facility is being given by else loop. So whenever your if loop is not satisfied, your else part will be automatically printed or executed. So now let us see what is happening. Now A is 20, B is 30. So it will check 20 is greater than 30 or not. Obviously, it is not. So it will automatically go to your else part. So now let us see it. So I'm going to compile. No issues. We will run the program. Obviously, we are getting B is greater. So this is how your else loop works. So else loop is a block of code which is executed only when your if condition is not satisfied. But now let us take a scenario like A is 20, B is also 20. Now let us see what happens here. Now also you are getting B is greater, but logically this is wrong because both are 20. How we can print B is greater? It is not logically correct. So now let us see how to make logically correct. So now here we have three conditions actually. If A is greater than B, we need to print A is greater. If B is greater than A, we need to print B is greater. If A and B are equal, we need to print A and B are equal. So we need to create another if loop. That is called as else if loop. In else loop, we are checking whether B is greater than A or not. And here I am changing A and B are equal. So else loop is nothing but it is a second condition to check. So usually what we do in if loop we give only one condition, but else if is the another one which holds the second condition. If this condition fails, bring this condition. If this condition is this else loop also fails, only then your else loop will be executed. So it is a linear execution. So first your if condition will be checked. If your if is being satisfied, your if block will be executed and no other blocks will be executed. Your else if and else will not be executed. But if your if is not satisfied, it directly does not go to your else, it goes to your else if, stating that it will check whether B is greater than A. If this condition is satisfied, then this will be printed, else will not be printed. So here, when your else will be printed is that only when your if loop and your else if loop, when both the loops are failing, only on that particular time, your else loop will be executed. So now let us see how it is going to work. So A is 20, B is 20. Now it will check whether A is greater than B or not. Obviously not. So this will get failed. Then it will go to else loop. B is greater than A or not. Once again it will fail. Then it will go to your else loop. Then it will print B and A are equal. So now let us compile. No issues. So let us run the program. So B and A are equal. So now let us give another input. Let us make B greater. So let us give it as 200. Let us run the program. B is greater. Your else if part has been executed actually. So this is how your else loop works. So now let us make A is greater one more. Let us make it as 2000. Let's compile and run. So A is greater. So this is how your if else loop work. So you can add any number of else if. So actually in your if else loop, your if and else must occur only once. That is this part. A is greater than B, that part, and your else part must occur only once. So if must be the one. The first loop is the if loop. Last loop is the else loop. In between them, you can add any number of else if loop as whatever you want. There is no restriction in the count. The only restriction is that if loop must be the first loop, else must be the last one, and in between you can have any set of else if loop, and only one block will be executed at a time. If is satisfied, no other block will be executed. If else if is satisfied, only that else if part will be executed, no other will be executed. So this is the working of if else. And this is what we call it as a conditional statement because it completely works on the certification of the condition. and whatever you give within this bracket is called as the condition A greater than B. That is what we call it as a condition. And we have here another thing is that greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than equal to, equal to. These are the conditional operators. These operators only can be used while checking condition. And there is a special operator called as not equal to. Not equal to means you are checking whether A and B are not equal to or not. For example, you want to execute a loop only when A is not equal to B. That is whenever they are different. On those conditions, we will be using not equal to symbol. So now let us see a small example for that also. So I will just erase my else if part. A and B are not equal. So let us use this symbol. A not equal to B. So whenever A is not equal to B on that particular condition only, this particular loop will be executed. So now A is 2000, B is 200. That means they are not equal. So your if loop will be getting executed. So now let us check that. A and B are not equal. So that is what that exclamatory and equal to symbol does. So exclamatory and equal to are same combination symbol which creates one condition checking not equal to. So whenever you want to check whether the numbers are not equal to, you need to use this one. If you want to check whether equal to, you need to check double equal to. That is the difference. So do we have any doubts in our session till now? So now it is a query time. So if you have any queries in this today's section, you can ask it. Fine. So in a next coming sections, we'll be looking into deeper topics called as looping statements, while loop, for loop. So as of now, today we are finishing with this. We are only seeing only conditional loops. In coming and upcoming sessions, we'll be seeing the more higher topics. So do we have any doubts today in conditional loop or variable data?
No,
Yes. What is the doubt?
no doubt.
No doubt. Okay, fine, fine. So, for later to next session, please coordinate with Kala. So she'll be giving you the date and time for next session. So next upcoming session, we will be covering our while, for loops, and also we'll be covering a new data type called as character. Because till now we are dealing only with the numbers, int and float. There is a third data type called as character. So that will be seen in the upcoming sessions. So hope we'll be meet on those upcoming sessions also. So if there is no doubts, we will wind up for now. So Kala?
Yes, Ashok.
Yeah, fine. So we'll wind up for today. So we have covered if loop part today. So we'll wind up now. So since there is no doubts, we will try to meet on our next session.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, thanks, Anand. Thank you so much. Bye. Thanks, Puchita. Thank you.